Once Round the Park podcast. Two.
But we're still not walking around twice, are we?
No, this is just the second iteration of the first podcast.
Okay. No, listen, all I'm concerned about is our ongoing health.
Well, I guess that covers point one in terms of mortality. We have mortality,
I was going to start there.
survival, and power.
I'm still in that awkward moment where you realise that you're being recorded. I'm not ready for that.
I know.
I'm still railing from last night's dream, which ended up, for some reason, with me towing a Henry Hoover behind my car, looking for petrol for the Hoover. Why I was looking for petrol for the Hoover, I don't know.
Dreams are a bit like that, aren't they?
Yeah, they're totally like that. They are at my head anyway.
Funnily, the Henry Hoover would probably be equatable to the size of our car.
Yeah. I wouldn't look out of place. In fact, actually, it'd probably be a very good fit. I wonder if you can get them in blue.
Oh, with a tow bar.
Yeah, that was the thing that I couldn't quite work out. Because I was very conscious at one point that the cable on the Hoover was kind of, that I needed to kind of coil the cable. But for some reason I didn't have the same concern about the
fact that it was requiring petrol.
Well, okay. or that it was requiring. No, the hose of the Hoover wasn't particularly worrying for me. Yeah, that was just what it was.
Oh, dreams.
No, but I've worked out what that was about.
Ah.
It's obviously the fact that we need to Hoover today. We need to vacuum today, and I don't really want to do it.
I know, I like the idea of spring clean, mainly because it's in the spring and it's not currently spring.
No.
And does it...
It's kind of the opposite of spring, isn't it?
Does it mean that, I know it doesn't mean that you can just have one cleaning session, but that's the thing, you get round to the spring and it's such a goddamn mess. I don't think we've done too bad though. I don't think we've done too bad so far. Just
What, in not hoovering?
Well, no, I think
3 weeks.
We've
not done bad at all. We're not actually tripping over detritus and dead skin cells. but it's pretty bad. No.
I know, you can... I just spread out into the space to which I have available to me, which is hugely problematic.
Yeah, so anyway, when we get back from our walk today, we need to move. Look, it's the only way I'm going to shake my drink.
Ah. Okay, to the left or to the right?
Oh, there's a question for you.
Fork in the road.
I think I actually quite fancy going. Let's follow the.
So we're going
to follow the jogger
to the right.
Which is another point that needs to be made. I think is about joggers in the park.
West Park's park run.
Now listen, I'm not averse to there being joggers in the park. In fact, it's the most natural thing in the world that there are joggers in the park.
But how dare there be people in the park?
No, I find it ever so slightly different when you're having your daily walk around your park and running up behind you comes about 300 joggers.
Oh, and those front runners, they have no shame. They have no sense of body space. They just like...
They are totally alpha male runners. Even the women are alpha male. I mean, it's like... wow. They scared the living shit out of me. I will be honest with you.
But as they all run past you, it kind of, you see the change in the demographic that's taking part. It's a great snapshot.
Yeah.
It's a great snapshot of modern Oh, what is it? What is it a snapshot of?
It's a snapshot of the basic hierarchy of business, I think.
And
Where you have the young alpha management there in front, and then coming up hot on the heels of the managers are the next wave, but they haven't quite made it yet.
Oh, and they're so exhausted. They seem to be constantly exhausted from the moment they actually leave the start line.
And slightly behind that second wave, you have the almost made it. We tried our best, but god damn it, we didn't quite make it. But we're still going to hold our position, and we're not going to let anything drag us down. And then gradually, as you start getting towards the sort of middle and rear of the pack, you've got I'm not quite sure where I fit into this, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
With the occasional daddy jogger.
The daddy joggers.
Daddy joggers are brilliant.
I mean, actually running around the park with
a push chair.
A double push chair.
Yeah.
Not just
yeah, double push chairs.
Yeah, and the kids inside there go, what? What's going on here? No, but they love it. It's all good.
And then there's the occasional female jogger that's kind of separate from the pack and just going straight past everybody.
No, you've got to hand it to someone else. I mean, here's the thing. Look, I actually do think it's great that they have park runs. All I'm saying is, it's ever so slightly perturbing when you're enjoying your nice Saturday walk in the morning and suddenly behind you comes 300 joggers. It's like that scene in Blade Runner where the cyclist just whoosh, comes straight past you. That's the
Yeah. No, I think when I was in Copenhagen and discovered the flock of cyclists were a little bit perturbing because they're so quiet that until you realise that when you step off a pavement, you're not actually stepping off the pavement into the road, but you're actually stepping off the pavement into the cycle path, and then you get to the road. No, and if you're not careful, all of a sudden you're like one of those spinning tops.
But Flock is right, because it's like, you know, even though we're walking right to one side of the path, it doesn't matter. Those joggers, they're coming past you left and right.
Yeah.
They're going to make sure that they don't lose their position. So.
What's it? It's in Jurassic Park when they kind of move like a
just like that.
And you have to get out of the way, and they just like flock either side of you.
But one thing I will say, at least we were actually going in the same direction as them, because the week before it was a lot worse because we were going in the opposite direction to them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of well,
yeah, but
just sit down for a minute.
Yeah, and then you get, and then the kind of overriding British apologising comes in, where you go, sorry. So you stand out of the way.
I'm sorry, but I do. My mind doesn't say sorry. My mind says, it's my park too, you know. Well, I'm just walking here.
I mean, it's a lovely big open space, and I love the fact that there are people and runners, but
a little bit of consideration.
And it's not that I'm not a team player, because I do enjoy working with groups of people, and I enjoy socialising to an extent, but there is an overwhelming feeling that I get with, what are all these people doing here? There's far too many people.
Oh wait, there's something else going on up there.
Right, well, I'm going to put the umbrella up. It's starting to rain, but also it's actually a little bit breezy, and I'm hoping that it will not make the mic too noisy. I don't think it's making much difference.
Oh, we didn't glue those things, did we?
I love my inside out brolly, but its little pegs come off the end because it's a double layer.
We are going to super glue these.
It's a double layer so that it is actually genuinely windproof umbrella, which is great. I've got one more to do here. Okay.
Hey, we've repaired our umbrella in the park. That's great.
Woo-hoo. Well, it's great. I'm just so pleased with.
Come on, what have you done this week?
What have I done this week? Well, at the beginning of the week I started by going out and seeing the venue for the High Growth Summit event on 13th October. Radisson blew out at the East Midlands Airport, which Long Eaton has a great bus service to Nottingham, Derby, and a 24-hour bus service out to East Midlands Airport. So I thought, oh, I'll go out there. So I got on the bus and didn't realise there was 2 buses that goes out to East Midlands Airport, which is a bonus if you're going to departures, but not a bonus if you want to actually go further beyond and actually to the venue, because the airports are bloody huge. Which of course you don't know, do you, Dan?
No.
Yes. Well, no. The first time I went out to the East Midlands Airport to get on a plane, my first thought was, how do I know that I'm there? And as I was going, thinking, oh,
I have been to East
yeah,
Midlands Airport.
but I was thinking, how do I know whether I'm there or not? When to get off? And of course, as soon as you start approaching the airport, it's so massive. You start to see planes landing and you start to see runways, and I was just like, oh God, of course it's going to be obvious when I'm here.
I don't know, I see planes flying over our place all the time.
So I did go down and visit there, and really lovely venue. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, I then met up with the organiser to decide finally what the Extend the Audience package was going to look like.
Yeah.
I've met up with local artist Diana Shepherd about her new website, and we did a bit of a live workshop, which I really loved doing, where the artist goes, oh, I'd really like this and this, and you pick a template and you sort of start to really build it in real time with them feeling the way through the navigation of their website, so you get a sense of what the site is going to mean to them. Because for a lot of artists, it's your portfolio, but it's also you've got to want to show people. So I'm always quite keen to find out people's energies around what they want the final thing to be.
And then the end of the week you were in
And
London?
then at the end of the week, I was in London for 3 purposes. One was the new stage management specialist committee of equity, where 9 people and me now. There's usually 9 elected members, and because of various industry stuff, I've ended up needing to re-educate people on what it means to be a digital stage manager in the modern age. But we had some really good discussions about, I think live streaming mainly was the most interesting points that came out of that.
Okay, so that's your bag on that, isn't it?
Yeah, and then
And a couple of other things that you can't.
yeah, I was things that I can't. One that I can't talk about, I'll have to shoot you. And the other, really the bonus item, I guess, is I've really been trying to get my head around recruitment and employment agencies now that the world has changed and how you get work. And I did some Careers Hub searches, and I was really pleased and quite, was I surprised? I guess I wasn't that surprised that as soon as you move into another geographic area, your Google browser detects that you've moved somewhere else and changes the searches to be more local. And the sentiment of the posts that I was getting and the resources that were coming up top were just so much more useful and positive than stuff that I get home here locally.
So you really noticed that in London, that there's so much more openness and straightforwardness about people looking for work and needing to improve skills and actually just asking a reasonable amount of money for what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is just the fact that it seemed to tie in more with the general news that's going on at the moment about there are a lot of jobs there, but not necessarily the skills. But there was no kind of... ironically, the jobs that were being advertised down in London felt more attainable.
Yeah. But maybe that's just because businesses in London are a little bit more aware now of the importance of the sort of new media and doing fresh stuff. And
I think they're
a little bit more appreciative of the fact that that people who are actually who are knowledgeable about those technologies are a little bit more savvy about what they want.
Locally, I think they want one person to do lots more stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
So the roles that are being advertised in the capital are much more specialised, which for me, although I've got a very eclectic range of stuff, I would rather pick one of those which I'm strongest in.
That's difficult for me because I'd rather kind of go and work for somebody who I guess I've got more chance to kind of fit in somewhere with one of the many kind of skills that I've kind of got, which I haven't really specialised like that.
But you're the example of the Paul Smith job is that they not only wanted a researcher, an archivist, and a Photoshop expert, and someone who could also put video together.
Oh, they want a lot of skills.
But that's the thing. Yeah. In the London jobs, it wasn't like that. Yeah. In the London jobs, if they want you to do Photoshop, that's listed as a specialism, but it's listed in their needs, and then there's less demands. There's so many.
Well, you might find that
expertise that are required in local jobs that they're actually, it's like I always ask myself, I've never met anybody who could possibly achieve this.
Oh, I don't know. I've met some pretty smart people out there. There are some pretty smart kids out there.
Yeah. So that was an interesting insight and gave me a little bit more sort of positive energy to come back with. And then I met up with some performers and entertainment professionals who I've not seen for a long time, who have got to a point now where they not only realise social media is coming and is here, but they're starting to identify what it is that they need to be able to cope within that world. And that was the thing that I was always finding very difficult to get them to express. So there is the possibility of doing some courses down at Guild House.
Got to make it happen.
And that's things like just really simple things. Like I spent a couple of hours going through somebody's mobile devices and explaining why they need to update them through the App Store and why it's important to update your iOS system or your operating system when updates come. Because they never use their phones all the time for a device in that sense.
Anyway.
So
cool.
So that's.
So you've had a busy week.
I have.
And probably in contrast to my week, where I think the highlight of my week was managing to eat a multi-pack of Kit Kats, a medium-sized pork pie, a complete packet of double-tiered packet of Bull Bob biscuits, 2 pot noodles, a cheese sandwich, and assorted other items. 4 packets of Wotsits. All in the course of
48 hours.
48 hours. Yeah.
But ironically, I earned no more money than you earned.
Oh, what, you mean zero?
Well, yeah. And that's, it's like, I can't often, I wish I was as rich as I was busy. And, I mean, that's one thing that I've...
Well...
Stuart has had the patience of the saint to some extent.
You're supposed to just not do anything until somebody actually offers you the money.
I know, and you...
But we've been doing this for years. I know. Sometimes we do get paid quite well. But most of the time we don't, so we're doing something wrong there, we're just doing something wrong.
There comes a point where walking around with the brolly just starts to make you look silly, so we're going to have to...
Well, having had an ever so slightly sort of tolerable rant about runners today, we've come to realise that actually this morning it is the children's
park run. Which is cool.
Which is actually a lot less intimidating than the adult part, because they're just smaller. Everybody's a lot smaller and cute. Wow.
Yeah, so same.
Well, we're halfway around the park.
Same kind of battle at the moment is seeing how you fit into the world, and I think a lot of young people probably have exactly the same thing.
Oh God! Look at some of the stories that we've seen this week, right? You know,
Stories this week.
let me just start with like the student loans one that I was reading on the BBC. There's just an article about the rates at which those student loans are expected to be paid back. You know, like the base interest rate is what I can't even remember what the base interest rate is, but it's
the base interest rate is something 0.5 at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah. And the interest rate for student loans from the article you were saying is like 4 or 5%, and is going up to a bit higher.
I think it's going to be something like 6.1% or something like that. So, you know, based on that, why would you ever take out a loan with that organisation? I just don't. Why would you do that?
Well, I've heard a lot of people deal with that in their head because they just tell themselves that they'll never be able to earn that sort of money.
Right.
But then that also does put you in a negative spin because you think...
Well, surely that's got to affect your credit rating and all that kind of stuff.
Well, credit rating's weird though, because if you have no loans, that is a penalisation. If you're actually in debt, as long as you are paying back the interest on that debt and you're managing those debts, you have a higher credit rating.
But here's the thing for me, right? Even if we're saying, you know, that look, you know, we've got to pay for our young people's education somehow. We used to do it via tax revenue, and now we're saying no, that's not really very fair on an awful lot of people who don't go to university. So we're going to do it, you know, by
tax code,
by effectively taxing people when they've already had their course and they're working. That's fine. But look, if this is an initiative to get to better educate, you know, our kids, our future workers, what the hell sense does it make to be putting interest rates on it that are so bloody high that by the time you actually get a good enough job to pay it back, you're paying back such a substantially higher amount of money? And anyway, that whole system still favours wealthy people because they can just pay it back. Wealthy families can just pay that back whenever they choose.
Yeah, you mentioned interesting the other day is you wonder how many investment savvy families take the amount that they're entitled to for the student loan, invest the
same amount of money from their own
support their kids, and then at the end of it, what would that investment return?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't do that unless your kid actually does go to university. But my point being is that, you know, you can effectively send your kids to university for free. But it's like, actually make money out of them going.
I mean, one thing...
If you had enough money to... I don't know, is that feasible?
I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. But I know one of the difficult things that they closed down with business funding is that it used to be you do a course, you present your business plan, you tell them what you want to spend your money on, then they give you the money to spend it. Whereas, of course, people were doing that, getting the money and not doing the business. So...
And I guess what I'm suggesting is that if your family has enough money anyway, it's not going to affect them in the same way that a poor family, you know, who doesn't have that spare cash sitting around, because you can effectively sort of say, well, look, you know, it's absolutely, it doesn't affect us in any way whatsoever sending our kids to university. Whereas,
I don't think I would have gone to university.
No, I wouldn't. No way. There's no way. I would have gone, certainly not to do fine art.
No.
What a waste of money that would be.
And I think that, you know, there's so many...
And it shouldn't be. This is the thing, we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We need study in all those in all those sort of areas of culture and business and life. Because otherwise we become a culture which is purely about business or purely about academic subjects. And it's like, you know, I get that people who do those subjects and who end up in those high-paying jobs may be super smart at what they do, but they can also be complete idiots as well when it comes to other sides of life. So we need that balance, and we, you know, personally, I just kind of think we need to be a little bit more acknowledging of of the value of some of those things.
Yeah, I think.
Anyway,
I think art's the classic one, and I think with the labour market generally, of, you know, people forget that automation can be invested in, and then that investment in the automation finally pays off. But ultimately, the people themselves need to have worth and purpose and direction.
Yeah.
And
okay, so this raises our other our other sort of little mini struggle for the week, which is our trip to our local supermarket. let's not say which supermarket it is.
No.
But of course, it's one of these supermarkets, big supermarket. One of actually two in our town. But of course, they've gone for this big bank of self-service,
which they all have.
Check out the machines. Now, I'm ideologically opposed to this, because I just think, you know, this is just this is the tip of the iceberg of big organisations basically trying to just cut their labour costs, and people need jobs. And you know, the thing that bugs me about this is that they have their own workers in their stores trying to get people who are waiting at tills, you know, with, actual, you know, people tills, to try and pull them away to use these machines. And I don't want to do that. You know, I respect the fact that I want these people on the tills to have their jobs. You know, and it's not like the supermarkets aren't making profit with those people in their jobs. I just kind of, this to me is just, it's the start of that whole, how far do we let automation go?
Well, it reminds me of restaurants at the end of the galaxy, Douglas Adams, where you have the cow waiter that comes up and asks them at the table, you know, what part of him would they like, and they do the whole sales pitch of, you know, oh, my rump's nice and tasty, and, you know, all the ribs are very tasty, and I am told, and then they make their order and they go, oh, thank you very much, and then they walk away and you hear a gunshot.
I have, you know, several arguments, you know, against the self-service tills. Not least of which is the fact that 9 times out of 10, bloody things don't work.
Yeah.
You know, how many times? I mean, every single time that we've ended up going through those machines, there's been some mess up with the bag that you put down on the sensor, or, you know, the one item that you put into it, you know, doesn't quite register properly. What happens? The whole thing shuts down. Red light flashes. Somebody has to come and actually has to come and deal with it.
And especially if you were going through there as a matter of urgency, it's that hiccup that can change the experience. And I think a lot of these retail things are about experiences. I would rather stand in a line where I can see the movement of the queue and get a sense of when I'm going to get through. Whereas those unknowns,
I enjoy my little conversation with the person at the checkout.
Yeah.
While they're putting my food. I mean, it's part. I mean, do we want to kill social altogether in the real world? I mean, this is what's happening. It's like, in my mind, I mean, I always sound like a Luddite when I'm talking about this, because I'm talking about making the decision not to use something because it's actually not good.
No, I think you have a point. I mean, you could
make the same point about the whole Industrial Revolution, couldn't you? And you know, that was the whole sort of point of the the Luddite movement, that this is kind of taking work away from cottage industries, and but you know, this I'm kind of starting to see as being a bit different. This is getting to the point now where we're removing the need, or we're removing jobs from the job market, which we're just not replacing. We're just not replacing these jobs. You know,
at least not on the mass and this ground roots level.
No, and this is the tip of the iceberg, I think. For, I mean, you know, again, we read this morning there's a driverless bus in London, and what's that going to mean for that whole industry of working? You know, far fewer drivers being employed on the roads, and Okay, good for safety maybe, possibly, until we have our first big, first big accident.
But I sort of think some of the sticking points that, is it South East Rail, are constantly, the union are always, you hear about them going out on strike and sort of the industrial action that's going on there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that comes into the news tends to be about they don't want just to be the driver, they want there to be a driver and a conductor, so to open the doors, because sometimes they can't see. It's not all made about that, there's a bit about pays and conditions, but very little is mentioned about the fact that half the workforce will go, and it's that decreasing pool of jobs for
thickies like me.
Well, no, as I say, you still have to. I mean, if you look at especially for train drivers, you've got to have a reasonable level of maths and coordination.
Listen,
and
whatever job that you do in this life, you need to be able to do that with the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And just saying that those jobs are somehow cheapened by the fact that more people would be able to do them, it's just not, it's not good enough argument to sort of...
It's capacity, isn't it, of the workforce?
All I see at the moment is businesses with the one-track thinking of trying to reduce their labour costs because that makes them more competitive. Well, it may make your business more competitive, but in the long run, if we follow through that kind of ideology, who the hell is going to be able to afford to buy your stuff? When half the population isn't even able to get work, and are we seriously saying that the richest people in the world are going to look after the poorest people in the world? No,
we can't even look after our own.
It doesn't happen now. It doesn't happen now. We may have a benefit system in this country, but there's places all around the world where that clearly, isn't the case. Where we reap resources out of, this country or another, and we don't look after those people. We don't look after those people. So we're heading into weird territory for me, where we're almost kind of we're looking into the barrel of our own. Of our own gun, really. It's
super gun.
It's the and I don't know. I mean, so I'm about to drift into a slightly more conspiratorial waters here.
Okay, go for it.
This is based on another documentary that we watched about the development of space tourism in the private sector. So you have your Elon Musks and your Virgin
and your Jeff Bezos. They're the three, aren't they?
That whole kind of thing. Okay, where you've got these multi-billion-dollar entrepreneurs who are basically, so they say, kick-starting the space tourism gig. And there's a whole load of benefits for that. We need to start doing it. We do need to start, making those moves into space. There are resources out there, and sooner or later, for the human animal is to survive beyond our own sort of our own solar system. We're going to have to get out there.
But I think
to do that kind of thing.
There is that.
But here's the thing. The point for me with all this is that all those billions of pounds that are coming now, we're now seeing this happening from private individuals. Where the hell did they get that money from? Their own businesses? And where all this excess cash that is being ploughed into these programs, as great as they are, how on earth then can a private business, condone how it treats its workers and how low paid they are? Are we basically saying, look, the state of the world's economy and the amount that businesses pay people is relative to how much money we can skim off in order to run these great programs? Because I kind of say, no, that's not a good enough reason. If we're going to do that, we all actually have to be a part of that. We all have to say, right, we're prepared to do that. And we've not been given that opportunity.
Yeah.
But then that's where it ends up being, I don't know, is it conspiratorial or, you know, it's my lack of understanding of how these things work, because
conspiracy, yeah.
Because I just don't understand how that works, or but actually I think I pretty much do understand how that works.
Yeah.
You know, over the years, certain corporations and businesses have been so successful that they have amassed all this cash somewhere. You know, well, all that cash could have been used to make people's lives here better now, and it hasn't.
Well, that was our once round the park. So I haven't switched off. I was just wondering what our DVD extras would be.
DVD
okay.
extras. So anyway,
that's what.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help.
That is a really that was a BBC documentary.
Yeah. It was the Cox.
Brian Cox,
Brian
yes.
Professor.
Yes. So yeah, BBC good documentaries. What else have you been watching this week?
I've actually been watching on the theme of power structures.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. I've been watching. I've been watching lots of war documentaries on YouTube, and also I watched Goodfellas, which is this kind of mafia gangster film, but very good, very good, very good. And really kind of just, as I'm mulling over some of the themes that I'm kind of thinking about for this little kind of guide that I want to write.
Yeah, and my DVD extra, which is probably something that's completely off the beaten track, but if I was to think of one, I regularly watch Musical Theatre Mash. It's a YouTube channel. If you're into musical theatre, do check it out. It's a sort of journalist vlogger in New York who's really at the front of who all the performers are, and it's a really good inside look to the world of musical theatre geekery. Yeah, that's what I think you should go check out as a little side to this. So that's it from us for this week.
And I think you should go and try and watch something that you would never have thought to watch, because it'll be good for you in some way, even if it's a cat video.
Yeah.
You say go and watch a cat video if you've never seen one. Or
well, that's it. I mean, we have now gone once around the park, and it's really good to make these for us to have a structured talk. And I know our structure isn't too great right now, but do stick with us.
Yeah, because I know that this is rambling.
This is a lot of rambling, but rambling's kind of good, and I like the natural experience. And if people wanted to join us at some point, we might have to ask some friends to join us, or ask my sister to join us, or so have a little bit of a group chat.
I think we're going to need to do that at some point, because
yeah.
What you need is you need other people who can come and say, no, Dad, you're talking absolute rubbish.
Yes, that's the thing with that, and that's the problem with bubbles, isn't it? Yeah. With your own, you can give as much information to your own bubble, but there's nothing like an actual opinion, be it right, wrong, black or white, or graded against your own opinion. Yeah. You need that. You need that human perspective. Right, I'm going to turn us off now. And